Ever get stuck talking to someone who just can't stop talking about themselves? You know, the type who could find a way to make your grandma's cat's birthday party all about them. Oh, totally. Well, today we are diving deep into the fascinating world of narcissism. It's more than just loving your reflection a little too much, right? Way more. By the end of this deep dive, you'll be able to spot those red flags, figure out what makes a narcissist tick, and most importantly, how to deal with them exactly, and how to handle those, let's be honest, sometimes tricky relationships. It's true. Narcissism, people throw that word around a lot, but it's way more complex than we give it credit for. Okay, so our source material mentions something called narcissistic personality disorder. Is this like a real diagnosis, not just your average garden variety egomania? Oh, absolutely. NPD is a serious personality disorder. But even without a formal diagnosis, understanding narcissistic traits is incredibly insightful for just navigating everyday life. Yeah. Think of it this way. You don't need to be a meteorologist to know a hurricane when you see one, right? That's a terrifying but accurate analogy. Yeah. So our source goes on to list a bunch of these narcissistic traits, like feeling super important, needing constant admiration, lacking empathy. Right. But what really jumped out at me was this whole fragile self-esteem thing. Isn't that kind of a contradiction? It is, and it's a really good observation, too. That gets to the core of narcissism, because so much of that over-the-top confidence, it's actually covering up a deep insecurity. They need constant validation because they're terrified of being seen as anything less than perfect. So it's almost like they're building up this big ego as a defense mechanism to protect themselves from ever feeling vulnerable. Exactly. It's a total house of cards. Any little bit of criticism just feels like a huge threat to them. And honestly, that's why it's so hard to have a healthy relationship with someone who is truly narcissistic. It's just not a two-way street. That makes a lot of sense. And speaking of unhealthy relationships, our source also mentions that narcissists can be interpersonally exploitative. It sounds a little ominous. What does that look like in real life, though? Not that we've ever encountered that. No, never. Okay, so imagine this. You're killing it at work. You're coming up with these brilliant ideas. You're on a roll. But then, every time you turn around, that one coworker, the one who always finds a way to bring the conversation back to themselves. So they're taking credit for all your hard work. Ugh, I hate those people. Or maybe it's that friend who's constantly calling you for advice or favors, but then when asterisk needs something, they're gone, vanished. That's interpersonal exploitation. Wow. So it's not just being self-centered, it's actively using other people to get ahead or fuel their own needs. Yeah, that's actually kind of chilling. It can be. And that's why before we even dive into all the different flavors of narcissism, it's so crucial to understand that this is about way more than just someone who's vain or self-absorbed. Okay, so narcissism. Not just some quirky personality trait. Right. It can have some real consequences in people's lives. Now I'm dying to get into these different types of narcissists. So yeah, because the source material is basically a villain's handbook. It kind of is. We've got the ageless wonder, the ruthless climber, the status seeker. It's like a narcissistic bingo card. And that's what makes it so fascinating, because it's true. Narcissism is not one size fits all. Recognizing these different types is actually incredibly helpful for understanding the way it shows up in individuals. All right, well, let's unpack a few of these narcissistic types. Our source material starts with the eternally youthful, the Dorian Gray, the Marilyn Monroe type. Okay. What's the deal with this never-aging archetype? What makes them tick? Well, these types are fascinating because they place huge importance on their physical appearance, like almost to the point of obsession. Maintaining that youthful image becomes like the most important thing to them. And it's often used as a way to captivate others and unfortunately sometimes manipulate them. Yeah, I can see how that would play out. Yeah, they constantly need validation for their looks to fuel their self-esteem. Right. Is that what it's all about? Pretty much. They're always chasing external validation. And as they age, that can become even harder. Yeah, it's like they start to see it everywhere. Oh, I bet. Anyone younger is a threat. Anyone they think is more attractive. It's like they're stuck in a perpetual beauty pageant in their own minds. Okay, next up on our narcissistic lineup, we've got the corporate climber type. I feel like we've all worked with this person at some point. Probably. This is the one who's always gunning for that next promotion, ruthlessly climbing that corporate ladder, leaving a trail of, victims. Burned bridges, let's say. Oh, yeah. They can smell blood in the water or weakness. Yeah. Weakness a mile away. But it's interesting because their ambition can almost be mistaken for like dedication or even leadership sometimes. Absolutely. And that's how they get away with so much. They're so charming and they know how to like leverage that to get to the top. But with this type, it's less about success itself and more about the feeling of power. So they just need to be top dog. It's not about the work. Yeah, it's about what it represents. Exactly. Okay, so I've got the ageless beauty. We've got the ruthless climber. What about the status seeker? What's their deal? This is your classic social butterfly, but with a narcissistic state, with that narcissistic twist. These are the people who are obsessed with appearances. They always have to be seen in the right places with the right people, wearing the right brands. So yeah, all about cultivating that image of envy. Yeah, just casually hanging out on my friend's yacht, that kind of thing. Yes, social media is their jam. Oh, for sure. Because it's all about those external signs of validation, likes, followers, all of that. And here I thought I was just bad at taking selfies. Right. But the source material mentions that even though these types might seem kind of harmless on the surface, that need for status can actually be just as damaging as some of the more aggressive types of narcissism. Oh, absolutely. Because that need for validation can lead to some really unhealthy behaviors. I mean, they might befriend someone just to get closer to someone else or use someone as a way to climb that social ladder. It's all about what you can do for them, not who you are as a person. Yeah, which honestly, good life lesson in general. Right. Okay. Shifting gears a bit here. Our source also mentions this charismatic leader type, right? Which seems a little more nuanced, right? It does. It's not all bad. This one's interesting because it really challenges that stereotype of the narcissist as this loud, attention-grabbing person. Yeah, right. Charismatic leaders, they can be really charming. Yeah, they're persuasive. Oh, yeah, draw you in with their enthusiasm. So it's kind of a double-edged sword then. Totally. Their charisma can be used for good, absolutely. But it can also be used for, well, not so good. Yeah, it depends what their actual motives are. Right. Because they might genuinely believe they're doing the right thing, even if it's actually self-serving. Right. That's a good point. It's a good reminder to look beyond what you see on the surface, even when someone seems really great at first. Okay, speaking of charm, let's talk about the seductive narcissist. This is like the master of flirtation and charm, right? And they're using that, plus their, sexuality, absolutely, to kind of like manipulate other people. It's all about getting power and control over someone. It's more about the chase than it is about the actual relationship. I imagine this type could be really damaging in like romantic relationships in particular. 100%. And you'll see this like love bombing where they just shower someone with affection and attention right away. Oh yeah. But the second they feel like they've won that person over, gone on to the next. Brutal. Okay. Last but not least, we've got to talk of the magical narcissist. This one sounds like something straight out of a movie. This is ego gone wild. We're talking about the people who actually genuinely believe they have special abilities, okay? Unique insights, like they have superpowers. Yeah, like they're living in their own movie where they are the main character, or the protagonist, right? And they often have this messiah complex where they think they have this super profound message for the world, even if there's no evidence for it. So they'd be really into like conspiracy theories and, oh yeah, all that kind of stuff. Totally. They need to feel special. They need to feel like they're in the know. Right. And anything that feeds that is going to be appealing to them. Wow. Okay. This has been eye-opening, to say the least. But let's get real. How do you actually deal with these people, especially if you can't just avoid them? Right, that's the question, isn't it? And the good news is, even though there's no easy answer, our research did offer some pretty practical advice for how to deal with these tricky relationships. So, okay, we've met all the narcissists. We've met the cast of character. We've got our program. Right. But for the people listening at home, we're like, wait, I know one of these people. Right. What do I do? What do I do? How do I deal with them, especially if I can't just, move. Right. Avoidance isn't always an option. You can't just move to Antarctica. You can't just ghost and go to the South Pole, as tempting as it sounds. That's tempting as it sounds. But you're right. So the good news is that there are some actually very effective strategies for protecting yourself. Okay. And honestly, your sanity, because dealing with a narcissist can be so draining. Oh, for sure. So give us the strategies. What's the first line of defense? Honestly, one of the most powerful things you can do is just accept that you can't change them. Narcissists, they're very resistant to self-awareness and to change. So trying to reason with them or get them to see your point of view, it's usually just an exercise in frustration. So many wasted breath, man. Just trying to get through to the that won't gonna work. It's a lost cause. Right. So if you can't change them, what asterisk you do? Right. Exactly. Boundaries. So important for every relationship, but especially with a narcissist. You have got to define what you're willing to tolerate. Okay. What are your hard no's? And then be very clear and consistent about communicating those boundaries. Okay. So that's, again, easier said than done. It's true. Because, narcissists aren't exactly known for being, super respectful of other people's needs, right? Yeah, well, that's true. So how do you actually get them to respect your boundaries when you're setting them? Mm-hmm. Well, they're going to test them, of course, yeah. Oh, yeah, they're going to push back. And that is where consequences come in. Okay. So that could be limiting contact. Right. Ending conversations when they turn toxic. Right. Or, honestly, walking away from the relationship altogether if you have to. Wow, okay. If it's unhealthy. Yeah. So it's really about prioritizing your own well-being. Yeah. Even if that means distancing yourself from someone who's used to having you around. Exactly. And another really big one, don't feed the beast. Okay. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Right. Don't feed the beast, which is their ego. Ego, narcissist. Yeah. They are fueled by attention. Oh, yeah. They love it. Good or bad, it doesn't matter. Oh, they love the drama. Yeah. So the trick is to not give them the fuel they crave. Don't engage in their drama. Don't argue. Don't constantly try to prove your worth, because guess what? Right. They're going to keep coming back for more. So they're like emotional vampires. A little bit, yeah. Just sucking the energy right out of you. Yes, you've got to protect your neck, metaphorically speaking. Okay. And we don't want to give them any garlic either. No garlic. So how do you do that? How do you actually detach when, I feel like they're so good at sucking you back in? Well, it takes practice, and it's not always easy, but it's about recognizing their patterns. Okay. And making that really conscious effort to detach and not get sucked in, so they can sense to your insecurities. They can feel that way, and they just push. But you have to remember, their behavior is a reflection of asterisk. Them asterisk. Not, you don't internalize theirs. All right, don't make it your problem. Exactly. Oh, good advice. Right, protect your energy. Honestly, this whole deep dive, I'm taking notes. Go ahead. This is free therapy up in here. I love it. But I do feel like I'm seeing narcissistic traits everywhere now. Well, knowledge is power, right? It is. And the more you know about this, the better you can navigate it. Yeah. With awareness, with self-preservation. Okay, so if you're listening to this and you're thinking, wait a second. Is that person in my life the boss, the friend, a narcissist? Yeah. What do I do? Trust your gut. Okay. Pay attention to those red flags we talked about. The need for admiration, the lack of empathy, the exploitative behaviors. Totally. And above all else, prioritize asterisk, your asterisk well-being. Yes. You deserve to have relationships that are healthy. 100%. Supportive. Yes. And sometimes that does mean walking away. Hard. But true. It's true. But you deserve that. We've got to look out for ourselves. Yes. Well, on that note, very empowering note, right? Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the world of narcissism. And we'll see you next time for hopefully a less narcissistic topic. Fingers crossed. But until then, keep asking questions. Keep exploring. Keep diving deep.